What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue my 2023 schedule preview / projected records for the 2023 college football season, and we continue them with the Illinois Fighting Illinois. Here was the schedule last year for Illinois. They went 8-5 overall in 2022, 8-4 in the regular season, ended up losing that bowl game to Mississippi State at the end of the year. And you look at who this Illinois team played out of the non-conference. They played Wyoming, Virginia, and Chattanooga. And then they also did not have a too tough of a non-conference schedule. Again, they had to play Virginia as a Power 5 team, but that game ended up, not being as close. Virginia was a mess last year, so the non-conference schedule not too tough for Illinois last year. And then out of the Big Ten East, they had to play Indiana, Michigan State, and they also had to play Michigan on the road. So they didn't have too tough of a draw there out of the Big Ten West. I mean, Michigan obviously was their toughest road game there, but they ended up competing in that game. But they lost to all the Big Ten East teams on their schedule. They lost to Indiana on the road, and then they lost to Michigan State at home. Two not too good of a teams last year. Michigan State was not good as we thought they were going to be. Indiana, we knew they were not going to be as good as we thought, but they ended up losing that game. So all in all, the schedule was not really too bad last year for this Illinois team. Again, a 8-5 record in 2022 and 8-4 in the regular season. Let's now look ahead to 2023. Here's the schedule for Illinois heading into 2023. You look at who they'll play in the non-conference. They'll play Toledo, they'll play Kansas on the road, and then they'll play Florida Atlantic. So non-conference schedule not all too tough as it was last year. It's kind of similar to last year. They'll play a Power 5 team on that schedule, and that's going to be Kansas on the road. That will be a tough game there. Looking forward to that matchup, though, in the non-conference. And then outside of the Big Ten West, we know they're going to be playing every single Big Ten West team. They'll play Penn State. They'll play Indiana once again, and then also they'll play Maryland on the road. So they'll play Penn State and Indiana at home this year, and then they'll play Maryland on the road. So not too tough of a draw there out of the Big Ten East. At least it's not Ohio State and Michigan. But, they had to play Michigan last year. But I think, this schedule kind of sets up well for them to have a pretty good season. But Penn State, that's their toughest draw there out of the Big Ten East. Penn State was one of the best finishing teams from a year ago, so I'm kind of expecting them to be good this year. Well, let's go game by game now for this Illinois team. So let's start the season off with two non-conference games. It's Toledo on September the 2nd, and then they'll play Kansas here on September the 9th. So they'll have two non-conference games to kick off the year. Like I said, looking forward to that Kansas versus Illinois matchup in week number 2. Should be a back-and-forth game. Then they'll play Penn State after that on September 16th to begin Big Ten play. Penn State, like I said, one of the best finishing teams from last year in the Big Ten. And then they'll play Florida Atlantic after that on September the 23rd. Then they'll play Purdue here on September the 30th. A revenge game here for Illinois. They got beat by them at home last year. Purdue, we don't know how good they're going to be. We don't really know how good all these teams are going to be until we get into the month of April or maybe after spring practice or something like that. But Purdue obviously will be on the road. That will be a tough game there. Then Nebraska here on October the 7th. And they'll play Maryland on the road on October the 14th. That could be an interesting road game there. It could be a game they could win probably. Maryland, we did Maryland's schedule preview yesterday, so you can go back and watch that video. And then they get Wisconsin here at home on October the 21st. Wisconsin team that's going to be different this year with Luke Fickell coming in. And then they'll get a bye week after playing that game, so they don't get their bye week until, late in the season. Then they'll play Minnesota after that on the road on November the 4th. Then they'll play Indiana here at home on November the 11th, another revenge game here for Illinois. This is a game they could probably win. Indiana, obviously, we don't know what they're going to look like just yet. And this is also just based off of where the teams were last year. And then they'll play Iowa on the road on November the 18th. And they'll play Northwestern to end things out on November 25th. So, all in all, the schedule not too bad for Illinois. They do got some tough road games on the schedule, though. Kansas out of the non-conference especially. And then Maryland, Purdue, Minnesota, and Iowa. Iowa will probably be their toughest test there on the road on November the 18th, but all in all, the schedule not too tough. Let's now get to the projection here for this Illinois team for 2023. This is the scale I use for my projections. If it's a 1% game, these are games where Illinois has no chance of winning. 20% games, Illinois will be about a couple touchdowns of an underdog. 40% games in the yellow, these are games where Illinois is going to be about a touchdown of an underdog. 50-50 games, these will stay in the white, games where they can go either way. 60% in the purple, these are games where Illinois is going to be favored by a touchdown. 80% games in the blue, these are games where Illinois is going to be favored by a couple touchdowns. And then 90% games, these are games where Illinois is going to be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. And that's what we always start with. We're going to start with the green games, the easy wins for Illinois. And I think you got 2 of those on the schedule. I got 2 out of the 3 non-conference games here with Toledo and Florida Atlantic. Illinois should be favored in both of these games by a big margin, by more than 3 touchdowns. They have no business to lose both of these games here at home, and they're in the month of September. So I think Illinois will take care of business between both of these teams with Toledo and Florida Atlantic, and I think these are the games where Illinois will be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. We go to the games now where Illinois is going to be favored by about a couple touchdowns in the blue, about 80%. And I think you just got one game on that schedule. It's Northwestern here at home on November the 25th. Like I said, this is just based off of where the teams were last year. Northwestern, obviously, one of the worst Big Ten teams from a year ago. I would probably put it in the green, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the blue just because it's a Big Ten matchup. Like I said, it's just based off of where they were last year, and this is also a conference game. But I'm still going to favor Illinois by a couple touchdowns in this game, and I think home field advantage really helps them out. If this was a road game for Illinois, I probably could have put it in the purple, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the blue. And I think that's the only game that Illinois will be favored by about a couple touchdowns. We go to the games now where Illinois is going to be favored by a touchdown in the purple, about 60%. And I got 2 of those on the schedule. I think you got 2 of them here, Nebraska at home and Indiana at home. So you get both of these games at home. Nebraska obviously wasn't that good last year. That's why I got to put them here in the purple. And the same thing with Indiana. And I think Illinois will be favored by at least a touchdown in both of these games in the purple. Nebraska, obviously, a new era coming in for them. I mean, we don't know how good that Nebraska team is going to be. We don't really know how good Indiana is going to be either. We just, like I said, this is just based off of where the teams were last year. We don't know how good all these teams are going to be until we get into, maybe May or something like that. And also, the teams don't get better in the season until the month of October. So, I think both of these games, Illinois will be favored at least by a touchdown. And I think these are the only couple games, and also all the games where Illinois will be favored in. All right, how about the underdog games? How about the underdog games for Illinois? Do I see them being any underdogs in these games? I don't have any red or orange games, but I do have a yellow game on that schedule. About 40% in the yellow. These are games where Illinois is going to be about a touchdown of an underdog. And that's the Penn State game on September 16th. I think they will be an underdog against Penn State. It is in early September, so this will be their first Big Ten game. And last year, Illinois did, compete against Michigan, one of those top 3 teams in the Big Ten. So I think Illinois will have a really good shot to pull off an upset here if Penn State was ranked in the top 10 by this point. I think Illinois has a chance to be a top 25 team this year, maybe like top 15 perhaps. But, Illinois as of right now, I got to put them as an underdog. But it could switch to a 50-50 game by the time we get to those predictions in the month of May. And I really think this is the only game I see Illinois being an underdog in. I think the rest of the games here on the schedule, Kansas, Purdue on the road, Maryland on the road, Minnesota on the road, and Iowa on the road, and Wisconsin at home. I think these are all 50-50 games where they can go either way. And like I said, this is just based off of where the teams were last year. Kansas, that's going to be an interesting non-conference game. I think with it being on the road, I got to put it as a 50-50 game. Purdue, obviously, we don't know how good they're going to be. But I think this will still be a 50-50 game even though it's on the road. Maryland on the road, I think that's a 50-50 game. Obviously, Maryland was pretty decent last year. Wisconsin, a new era coming in. I probably could have put this one in the purple, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the white just because, Luke Fickell coming in probably changes that offensive system for Wisconsin. And I think Wisconsin will be good enough to really, maybe pull off a huge upset against Illinois if they were ranked in the top 25 as well. And then Minnesota and Iowa are kind of similar. They're tough places to play, but, based off of where they were last year and based off of where Illinois was last year, I'm going to put both of these games in the white. I would have put this one in the yellow. I would put these games in the yellow, but as of right now, I'm going to stick with it and put both games in the white. But it could switch to a yellow game by the time we do those predictions. But I think these games right here are all games where they can go either way. So Let's now get to the projected record here for this Illinois team. You look at the schedule here. Games that they're favored in, and also the games that are 50-50 games, and also if you count that underdog game for Penn State. Like I said, this is not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on this schedule. You get an overall projected record for this Illinois team at 6-6 for 2023. So 6-6 right now is the mid-case scenario for this team. I think I see Illinois maybe winning 6, 7, or 8 games this year, perhaps. I think worst-case scenario for this team would probably be 5-7. They could lose one of those road games. Obviously, Kansas, Purdue, Maryland, Minnesota, and Iowa. They can potentially lose all those games on the road. That would be really brutal if they lost all those road games. I think they at least win one of those road games, maybe 2 of those road games perhaps, and lose the rest of them. But as of right now, the projected record for this Illinois team comes out to be 6-6. Let me guys know what you think about this Illinois team. What do you think their best case scenario would be? What do you think their worst case scenario would be? What do you think their projected record would be for 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.